Welcome back. You're listening to the Cinema Condition with your host, filmmaker, and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. And I am here for another episode with a new film and a new guest. I want to thank you all so much for the support on the last episode. You guys really, enjoyed Through a Glass Darkly with our friend of the network and cinephile and filmmaker, Ayden Byrnes, and the other episodes have been doing well as well. I've started to put these up on the Nerdcore podcast feed. Every Sunday you get an episode before an episode from the past. So right now we're up to I don't know how much we're up to, because when this episode comes out, it'll be a different number. But as of recording this, I know you guys have already listened to 3 episodes of this show. And I want to thank the support on there, and I want to thank about the people who are supporting on this new feed as well, because it's tough to start a new feed and get people coming over here. But if you guys go ahead and leave a rate and review on your podcast app of choice and on Apple Podcasts, it would help us out a lot. But don't worry, you get these episodes on two feeds now. But if you want to hear the season finale before it reaches the main feed, you're gonna want to listen on this one for sure. But today we're going to go ahead and be talking about E.T., the Extraterrestrial, with our guest, Wesley Boutilier. Wesley Boutilier is a content creator and cinephile himself. He's a huge fan of the cinema, and he chose this movie today. This is probably one of the most classic 80s films, probably 80s film that you could pick out from America, from the US of A here. And we've got Wesley Boutilier here to join us. How are we doing, Wesley?
I'm doing good. Anytime I can convince somebody to talk about ET with me for an hour, it's a good day. So I'm very excited.
And this is our second go around, so it's probably 2 times we've already been talking about ET. So
yeah, I had some technical difficulties, but we should be good to go now.
Hopefully, man. Hopefully. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine. Wesley, you were able to catch this one. Wesley was actually one of the first 4 or 5, I want to say 6 people that actually pitched the show to, and I was like, oh, hey man, you want to come on this show? I'm kind of making this new show where you talk about film in a deeper manner. We're not really reviewing the movie, we're more like talking its themes and how the film is shot and stuff. We're not really reviewing it and saying if we like the film or not. And you're like, oh yeah. And I said, do you want to do E.T.? And I already knew which one you wanted to do, right?
Yeah, you didn't even have to say or give me a choice. You were like, okay, so ET, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, usually everybody else, I'm like, hey, just let me know which movie you want to do. And you're like, oh yeah, I want to do this one, I want to do this one, I want to do this one. Right with you, I was like, hey man, do you want to do ET? Because I already knew damn well which one you were going to want to choose.
Yeah, it's basically my personality at this point. So
yeah, well, you have a big ET figure with you at home, right?
I'm staring at it right now. It is a life-size ET. The company NECA made one. Can't remember when they first made it, but I bought mine last year at a local toy store, and it's huge. It's like the exact same size as the one in the movie, and it is sitting in my living room wearing a shirt right now.
How does your girlfriend not get scared with that thing?
I had to convince her that it was a good purchase. I think the scariest part was the price, but it has become a welcomed addition to our home.
Yeah, I can just imagine how like your girlfriend just like, dude, like, can this thing not be any scarier?
She scares me with it. She'll put it places, and I'll open the bathroom door, and it's standing there, and I'm like, oh. Shit.
Yeah. Now you gotta get like a life-size version of that of Kermit. That size of Kermit.
Kermit would be a little smaller, luckily.
Yeah, but you can get him a bigger size. Come on. It doesn't have to be accurate size of Kermit, but a big size like that of Kermit, like it'd be cool.
I'm always down for that. I would have a house full of life-size characters if I could, but sadly, E.T. is the only one so far.
I think what you want is to have a Guillermo del Toro's type of house where he's got like dioramas and like these big statues.
Dude, he literally has. I'm pretty sure he has 2 houses, and one of them is just for like his memorabilia in each room. I'm like, that's the way to do it right there.
Yeah, that house scares the crap out of me. If I'd be in that house, I'd be really scared. But Yeah, what's it called? Before we had technical difficulties, you said that you were looking at the other movies we have done, and you're like, "Oh, am I the normie for choosing ET?"
Yeah, I was like, some of these are a little obscure. Am I like the basic boy for picking like one of the biggest movies? But I don't think there's anybody that's gonna be like, this is a bad movie. Like, I don't
No, no,
see how you can.
no. I
I,
was telling you that I've never heard a bad word be said about ET. It's like this movie is so heartfelt, so wholesome. It's just a feel good movie. I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about ET. Other films in Steven Spielberg's filmography, sure. I have my thoughts about AI, right? I have a couple of thoughts on other films that he's made. Yeah, I think that the biggest mistake that Stanley Kubrick made was that inviting Steven Spielberg to that set because I didn't like what Spielberg did with that movie. I think that movie should have died with Kubrick. That movie should not have been made if it wasn't with Kubrick. So
I've never seen AI, but I know I've heard a lot of differing opinions about it.
yeah, yeah. So I've never heard a bad thing about this one at all.
Yeah, the only bad thing I ever hear about this one is people that are like, he's creepy. ET is creepy. He scares me. I'm like, shut up.
Are aliens supposed to be cute now?
I think he's cute, but I guess I can understand that. I mean, it it also depends if you grew up watching it, I guess, and it depends if
Yeah.
you watch the whole thing. He is scary at first, but
hmm
you gotta watch the whole thing, and you're like, oh,
How can that thing be creepy and scary when he's drunk and passed out in the house?
he's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's
I, I I watched this film. I watched this film like a couple of times when I was young. I love this movie. I told you that when I was watching, I was like, wow, I forgot how much I love this movie. We there was a lot of stuff, and I think I appreciated this movie a lot more when I watched that HBO documentary on Spielberg.
yeah.
hmm Made me appreciate this movie a lot more. But after rewatching it for the show, I was like, wow, I forgot how much I like this movie. It's like so good.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people just remember like the big moments, and there's a lot of things they forget about unless you're me and you're obsessed and you're like looking up stuff every day. But like,
hmm
I think people who haven't seen it in a while, they remember like, oh yeah, they fly on the bikes and this happens, but they forget some of the like smaller details, and then you watch it and you're like, oh dang, this is actually like this holds up.
Yeah, yeah, it really does hold up. It's not like most a lot of movies from that era, they hold up, but not the best. Hell, even in the '90s, there's a lot of movies that came out in the '90s that pretty dated a lot.
Yeah, and there's some you gotta like if you hadn't seen him as a kid and you watch him now, you're like, okay. But like if you have nostalgia for him, you like him. But I feel like ET, like even if it's your first time seeing it or if it's your eighth time seeing it, like it's it's always good.
hmm And if I'm correct, this is your favorite movie of all time, right?
Yeah, it is. I
hmm
every time I think like, oh, maybe I could like knock it down. Well, I never actually think that, but I'm like, is it weird that it's been my number
Blasphemy.
one forever? Like it's never changed. Like nothing has ever topped it in my book.
Yeah, I think that's so. Like for a while, I said that American History X was my favorite movie of all time, and then I realized that Beautiful was my favorite movie of all time, and it hasn't changed for a while, and I keep watching so many things now. I've rewatched Cinema Paradiso so many times, and I'm like, no, this still can't beat Beautiful to me. I think Beautiful is still my favorite movie of all time, and it's crazy, man. I'm glad that that's what ET is for you, because
Yeah.
as cinephiles, we kind of watch a lot of movies, and like every time we kind of watch stuff that really surprises us. Like what's it called? I watched Old Boy, and I was like, wow, like dude, I think that just might be like one of my top 10 movies of all time. And then I look at my top 10, I'm like, nah, I just can't. No, it's like these are too good. Like these are movies that I absolutely hold so dear to my heart that I can. How can I? How no, I don't think so. I got to give it a more rewatch and but we're constantly like watching new things that really surprise us. But we go back to the movies like E.T., like Beautiful, and we're like, yeah, no, there's no way it can beat that.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
my top 5 I think is like always changing, but my top 2 is consistent. Like it never changes.
Yeah, I just started making a list on Letterbox for my 100, like my favorite films of all time, and like I'm at 127 now, but like nothing changes from like the top. I was like, the only one that's ranked is number one. Everything else is unranked. I don't care about top tens anymore. I don't care about top. The only top 10 lists I like to do is the top 10 anticipated movies for the year and the top 10 at the end of the year. But like as in of all time, like the only thing that's ranked is number one. Everything else is just organized by its rating and alphabetized. So nah, yeah, it's just I given up on that, dude. Like
Yeah,
number
it's
one is
impossible.
it's impossible. Number one is just because all the movies just mean so much to me, and like there's some that like on specific days, Cinema Paradiso might hit differently, or Her might hit a bit differently than Cinema Paradiso, and I'm thinking like, wow, okay, maybe this is better than that, and it just I clear my head and I say, you know what, I love all these movies equally. I don't care what their rank is. The only one that matters with rank is Beautiful. That's number one, and that's it. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm the same way with this one. And it's like, okay, I there's other ones I like and I love, but
Yeah,
nothing's topping this.
yeah. And I guess that's why you picked this one, right? Because usually I ask why did you pick E.T., but this you didn't pick it. I picked this one for you, and it's your favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's like one that I still remember. Like the first time I saw it, I was in second grade, and my parents were just like, "Oh, you should see this," and we watched it together. It's probably one of the only movies I remember watching like with both of my parents, and um, yeah, I think I went through like every emotion in our living room. I was like scared, and we had to pause it, and I was like, "I don't want to watch this. Turn it off." And then I got super into it. I was laughing, and then by the end, of course, like just sobbing like uncontrollably because you're sad. But yeah, it was crazy. And after that, I was like obsessed. I like checked out Steven Spielberg biographies from the school library all the time,
You
and
dressed up
I
as him.
dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Was that?
You dressed up as him on Halloween.
I that was for a book report in
Oh
third
wow.
grade. We had to dress up as somebody and do a book report about a biography, and I was like, okay, Spielberg. I had my vest and my like painted on goatee, and I walked in with a fake Oscar, and I was Spielberg for the day.
Yeah, a lot of us wish we were Spielberg for the day, man. How about you? You
Man,
did it.
no kidding.
No kidding. But I guess that leads really well into where we're gonna start with this. We need to go ahead and introduce the filmmaker known as Steven Spielberg. Uh, Steven Spielberg was born in December 18, 1946. On December 18, 1946, he's 73 years old right now in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the US of A here. What's it called? He has been working since 59, and that's a really long career. He's a producer, he's a director, he's a screenwriter. He's been really, what's it called? He's been, what's it called? Um, he's been responsible for so many films, but nobody really talks about his producing career, because he would produce Gremlins. What's it called? I can't remember the other one. Was it Leprechaun? Back to the
Um,
Future. I'm sorry, Back to the Future, Man in the Black, and
yeah,
the Transformers movies. Like he's a big producer as well. But he's also been nominated for several Oscars. He's won two Academy Awards for Best Director. Not a lot of directors have that claim. He All right, so he's one of the most successful directors. He's made some of the most acclaimed films, some of the most successful films. The film that we talked about for a bit talking about today was for a bit one of the highest grossing films of all time, and
yeah, it was the
it
highest
was the
grossing of all
yeah
time
yeah
until he knocked out.
with his own
He
movie.
broke his own record. Yeah, he broke his own record with Jurassic Park.
hmm So his first short film was Amblin, which would become the name of his production company, Amblin. Uh, he doesn't break out until 75 with the first summer blockbuster, Jaws. And this is really the one that really puts Steven Spielberg on the map, because there's a lot of history with Jaws, and I'm pretty sure somebody's going to choose Jaws soon, and we're going to get to talk about that. But, the movie that should not have worked, and Spielberg was really responsible for that.
Yeah, that's like that marks like a big change in movies and in his career, where it's like oh, okay, this is the guy.
Yep, and it was all he really does become one of the pioneers of new Hollywood cinema, and it would be a really big shift. He'd be inspired by the likes of Akira Kurosawa, that inspired people like Francis Ford Coppola, what's it called, Martin Scorsese, George Lucas, and David Fincher later on as well. He would also make films such as Close Encounters of the Third Kind, another huge one. Raiders of the Lost Ark. He works with that with his friend George Lucas. E.T., the one we're talking about today. He also makes Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Hook, Jurassic Park, which knocks off this one, right, for being the highest grossing film of all time. And, he knocks this one out. But also in 93, he makes Schindler's List. The Lost World, Jurassic Park, Amistad, Saving Private Ryan, Artificial Intelligence. The list goes on. And then in 2020, this year, he'll be releasing his remake of West Side Story.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. I'm excited, but I'm also like, I don't know. I get more excited for like a new original thing, but I'm sure this will be good too. And it's just like he's doing what he wants now, he doesn't have anything left to prove. So if he's in the mood to make a West Side Story movie, then I don't blame him for wanting to do it.
Yeah, his career has been really odd as of late. I enjoyed The Post for what it was, but it wasn't like amazing Spielberg. It wasn't like a young Spielberg at work. I have not watched Ready Player One, so I really don't have an opinion on that. But
there's like moments in Ready Player One where you're like, you can like feel what he's going for. Like parts of it feel like some classic, like fun, magical Spielberg, like kids on an adventure against the adults or whatever. But then some of it is just weird. The whole sequence in the with The Shining is awesome, but overall it's kind of messy. But some of it kind of rules. Like Mark Rylance in that movie is really good.
Yeah, man, I gotta watch that movie. I still haven't watched it. I know it's on HBO. I gotta watch it soon. But the last one that I watched from Spielberg was The Post, and that was like, it was all right. It was good, but it's just like, it's
Yeah, I saw that in theaters and I couldn't tell you anything about it. I don't even remember.
all I remember is that Meryl Streep was really good in that movie.
I,
But
I don't even remember that. I don't remember anything she does.
yeah, Tom Hanks was pretty good in it too. But that was it. Like, it's just it's different. It's you don't have Spielberg of like the 90s and the 80s. Like, this is a different Spielberg, and I hope he brings something to the table with West Side Story, and I believe he will, because it really looks like, at least with the casting choices, like it looks like he's actually trying to make something different this time.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be good. I mean, I love a good movie musical, and I feel like we're headed in that direction. I mean, I say that. I think after Cats didn't do so hot, I think some studios are going to be a little like freaked out to do musicals now.
Yeah.
But I hope that it does well. I mean, when the country is ever like in bad times, musicals do pretty well. Like, and it used to be like the thing. Like those were the blockbusters back in the day. Were like huge musicals. Like,
Sound
oh,
of
look, there's
Music,
150 dancing girls on the screen. Like, it's amazing. And you don't really get that anymore.
Yeah, I know you got Sound of Music, Singing in the Rain, all those huge musicals that were part of our history, especially during like tough times. And I know right now we're going through tough times, but I can't wait to see what he brings to the table. I really like the casting choices, and I'm excited. But it is definitely something to say that Spielberg he's at a really awkward part of his filmography right now. And I mean, he's an incredible, he's mentored so many people. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy, say what you will about her, right? But she's led, successful movies, made a crap ton of money. Yeah.
I think this was her first movie that she produced. I think E.T. was her first, if I'm not mistaken.
So, Spielberg has taken also the role of mentoring people. And, you're seeing a lot of that with these new filmmakers coming up. I know that Greta Gerwig showed him the concept about what he wanted to do with Little Women, and showed him like test footage and stuff, and he's like he convinced her to shoot it on film, and she owes a lot of what she did on Little Women to Spielberg. So
Yeah, I know a lot of people are really like Spielberg proteges, like J.J. Abrams. Obviously, I
oh
would say
yeah.
Taika Waititi to an extent is kind of inspired by Spielberg.
Yeah. Yeah, and I what's it called? How could you not? I mean, one of the most successful, one of the most what's it called? One of the most famous film directors of all time. I mean, he really is. There's no other filmmaker that can beat himself at the box office than James Cameron.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's how that went. Spielberg topped himself, and then James Cameron topped him, and then topped him and himself, and now
Hmm.
obviously Avengers. But
Yeah, yeah,
um, it's interesting that him and Cameron both had that happen back to back like that.
yeah, and it's crazy, and it says something about your filmography, because I think that when the Avengers does it, that's not because of the Russo bros. I think that's more of like brand name and all that stuff, and the Marvel name on it and the characters and stuff. But this is because these movies top themselves because it's Spielberg. It's his work, and it's crazy. And I can't wait to start talking about this. We're gonna go ahead and get into it now. Unless you want to bring up anything else about Spielberg that I'll take that as a no. So, what's it called? Let's go ahead and get ready here. E.T. is a story about a an alien that crashes into Earth, and his people leave him behind, and a little boy named Elliot finds him and befriends him, and they're trying their hardest to find a way to send him back to his home because he cannot survive on Earth. And it's a story about family. It's a story about suburban life, but deep down it's a really heartwarming story about a boy and his alien. Taken from like the classic stories of a boy and his dog. This one's a boy and his alien. Um, Wesley, are you still there? No, he's not. You got out. All right. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, man. Yeah. Sorry. What's it called? You couldn't. You stopped talking for a while, but we're still here. I just said that this is the classic boy and his dog story.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, I think I've heard Spielberg call it that before, where it's like it that's exactly what it is, and
Mm-hmm.
but like taken to a different, like a whole different level.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I love this movie. It has a lot of really touching moments. It's funny because there's stuff that's really scary in here that you're thinking like, wow, Spielberg can make a horror movie in with some of this skill that he's putting in here. You also have those moments of really like comedic parts where you're like, oh wow, like this alien's drunk at the house, and then you have like the really heartwarming parts where you're kind of like, oh, it's tear jerky.
Yeah, it really like it changes tones like a lot, but it's also like it fits so well together. It's wild. Yeah, there's definitely like some horror elements, like when Elliot first meets ET, and then also
Hmm.
when the astronaut hazmat suit guy starts showing up at the house.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. When all the astronauts come in, you're like, yeah,
Yeah, that's very like horror movie esque.
yeah.
It's kind of terrifying.
And it said that Spielberg really what's it called made this film inspired by his own life after his parents' divorce, and his imaginary friend that he creates. And it's really there's a lot of stuff in here about like life in the suburbs really isn't what it's out to be. Yeah, and he
Yeah,
talks
I
about
think
that on that documentary from with HBO.
I think it was this came out of Close Encounters. Like there were two stories, or it was like one story, and then it ended up being two. And Close Encounters is kind of like the other side of the ET coin, where it's like uh, there's suburban dreams, which is ET, and then there's suburban nightmares, which is Close Encounters.
Yep, yep. And what's it called? This is really shows you the what's it called? The really like that suburbia, these kids are out playing by themselves. The family, we don't really know anything about the parents. Like, the kids are out just being knuckleheads by themselves. And you're like, where the hell are your parents? Like, the only parents you see here that are caring is Elliot's mom, Elliot and Michael's mom. And the other ones, you never hear anything about them. It really shows like, there isn't really a sense of commodity in this neighborhood. It's really, what's it called? A very secluded area. And, by the end, the camaraderie that's there is between, Elliot, his brothers, yeah, his friends help out, but like, there's a really big shift in the relationship between Elliot and Mike.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about this is like it brings the siblings so much closer together because you see like at the beginning there's things I didn't catch as a kid. Like obviously they'd gone through a divorce and the dad has run off with Sally in Mexico, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, Dee Wallace's character is really like heartbroken about it, and
Mm-hmm.
the family's just kind of like torn apart at the beginning, and then this like crazy adventure brings all of them together in the end, and it really really just changes everything because like Michael and Elliot obviously they don't get along at all at the beginning, and by the end he kind of becomes like a protector figure for him instead of like a bully like he is at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the divorce part is really interesting because you have these kids who are still growing up. Grudy, the most prominent one that's barely growing up. I mean, she's a child, But Elliot is really there at the sweet spot where like he needs a father figure in the house to help him out. You know, it's not to say that a single mom can't do that work, right? I know thousands of single moms, and my mother was a single mom for a bit, with my big brother, and they can definitely do it. But Elliot's character, he wants a dad. He wants his dad home. He really wish he could talk to his dad and tell him about ET, and he's kind of there having to grow up by himself because his brother is very distant. He's being a bully, and his sister is kind of a little bit too young to understand what he's going through.
Yeah, he's at that age where you're like, it's probably around the same age that my parents got divorced, where it's like you're just you're not impressed by anything. You're kind of like acting out a little bit and that sort of thing. So it's like
Yeah.
it's that age where you're just like, no, this sucks, and I'm not afraid to say it. Like he's like, making his mom upset at the dinner table and stuff, and it's like that's how kids are. It's like you don't think before you say things. You're just like angry at the world, basically.
Yeah, man. And when you don't have your father there or your mother, and you got one parent missing in the house, you're kind of like, wow, like I love my mom, of course. Elliot loves his mom, but he's like, why don't you go tell your dad? And he's like, oh, he's not here. He's in Mexico with the other woman. Like, how am I supposed to talk to him? And that moment in the forest when Elliot tells him, "You could stay here, Et. We can grow up together." It's like, oh, that part gets to me, and it's like,
Man,
because he's like he wishes he had the relationship he has with Et with his brothers, and with
yeah,
his
and
brother and his
he
sister.
doesn't really have a friend
No,
at the beginning of
doesn't have a
this.
friend. Doesn't really have a friend
But
because his brother's friends kind of like, like whatever, he's around, what, yeah, whatever, he's his little brother. And his brother's obviously being an ass with him at first, and his sister, of course, she's too young, she doesn't understand what's going on. So he finds a friend in this alien, and it's like when this alien wants to go back home, it's like, wow, like damn, you could stay here, we could be the friends, and we can hang out, and we can grow up together. Mm.
yeah, but everybody like fundamentally changes after the events of this movie. Obviously, we don't know what happens next, but like you can tell, like this
Yeah.
whole experience has changed everybody for the better.
Yeah, yeah, and you read it when on their faces. It's like wow, like
I
maybe I should pay attention to my kid more often because apparently it was real when he said that there was an alien.
Yeah. Apparently, there was supposed to be a different ending. They were gonna go back because at the beginning they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, the boys, and they won't let Elliot play. And the idea was gonna be that Elliot would now be the dungeon master at the end of the movie, and it would be like, oh wow, he went from not being allowed to play, now he's the dungeon master. But then
Yeah.
it's like they didn't end up doing it because it's like, how do you top that ending? Like, it would just anything else would be like it would just pale in comparison. Like, that's such a epic ending, like a crazy closing, and it's like you gotta end it there. Like, you can't top that.
Yeah, man. And I think that's really, I think that ending really speaks really well off, and really kind of shows that relationship between Elliot and ET. And we're gonna go ahead and get into a commercial break in a bit, but we got to get in there because we're already halfway through. And yeah, just stay tuned, guys. And when we come back from commercial break, we'll keep this. We'll keep on. Sorry, guys, I'm missing out on my what's it called words here. When you come back, we'll finish our conversation on ET, the extraterrestrial. So just listen to these commercials and we'll be back in a bit. Hey, I'm Raul Alejandro Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, if it's from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT, nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Corps. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Corps podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/the Nerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun, we get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano show every Sunday at 8 a.m., all you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right? And we come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show of the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
We're back here on the Cinema Condition, and we're still going to be discussing E.T., the extraterrestrial, with our guest, Wesley Boutilier. I'm sorry, I got a burp right there. Wow. And
You sound like E.T. when he gets drunk.
just an alien getting drunk in daylight. Not even caring what the suburban moms are going to say. Yeah.
Getting drunk and watching Sesame Street.
Yep. Or watching, what's it called? Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
man.
basically life right now in quarantine, getting drunk and watching Sesame Street.
Yeah, this is about to create so many alcoholics, man. Like,
Honestly.
This is crazy. This is getting drunk in the morning, watching Sesame Street, and talking about the Muppets. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the life that E.T. lives, and it's not even quarantine times at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here to continue our talk with our guest Wesley Boutilier about E.T. the extraterrestrial, and when we left off, we were talking about that ending, and I say that I really like how that ends, and just the whole relationship between E.T. and Elliot's so symbiotic. It's back and forth. I mean, there's just E.T. Come on, the first letter of Elliot is E, the last letter of Elliot is T. It's E.T. Elliot is just as much as part of E.T. that E.T. is part of him.
Yeah, I think that's what really makes it special too. There's so many movies where a kid befriends a creature of some sort, but a lot of times it's goofy and it's played for laughs, and it's I don't know. There's a lot of bad movies where a kid meets a CGI character or something, but this is no other movie has done it like this, I feel like. And the fact that they're connected the way they are, they feel each other's feelings, is such a wild concept. There's a lot of high concept stuff in here for a family movie that I think a lot of people take for granted. You don't think about it oh, this is wild that this is in this movie.
Yeah, dude. And what's it called? It's a really high concept film, and what's it called? Those effects, they still hold up. Very much. So many years later, they're very, very good effects.
It's good when they try to go in, because I know they did the 2002 re-release, and they tried to add CGI and improve a bunch of stuff, and everyone was like, no, nah, bring back the regular stuff, because those practical effects are just insane.
Yeah, those practical effects are incredible. I mean, Spielberg is no stranger to practical effects. I mean, look at Jurassic Park. That was practical effects, and it's crazy how great that is.
And it's surprising that he wanted anything to do with it after Jaws was such a pain in the ass as far as dealing with that mechanical shark. But man, they went all in with the ET stuff. You should look up Carlo Rambaldi, who did who designed ET, because he's amazing. They won the Oscar for that as well, and just the amount of work that went into that, the design process, and then obviously making the animatronics and the costumes, because it's 3 different people who had to be in the costume at different moments in the film, depending on what they were shooting, and the the amount of people it takes to bring this one character to life is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it works because you really do feel like this is an alien with feelings. You really feel it, and it's a lot of that is because of the people who are operating the machine, but also the people who are doing the voice of the machine, and just those moments where everything kind of seems to be working really well together to make for
Yeah.
this creature who you can feel what he's feeling at times.
Plus, just like having that on the set, I think just makes all the difference. Like nowadays, it's like, oh, okay, we'll do it all in post, we'll animate it, whatever, and it's like it's so much you get something else entirely when actors can actually like interact with something. Like ET is there on the set. You're not just like talking to a tennis ball and some dots. You're like
Yeah.
actually sitting there and watching all of this happen. Like, oh, his neck comes up. Okay, well, we'll do it right here. Like it's kind of incredible because it
Yeah.
just doesn't happen anymore. Like I can't remember the last movie that really had like some insane practical effects like that. They don't take the time to do it anymore.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not like that anymore, and it's very what's it called? Very heavily based on digital effects, and there's some good digital effects, but there's just something about going back to practical, and not having to talk into tennis balls with dots, and having your scene look the way it looks because of it's practical effects. And I'm constantly seeing people like put stills of movies like they're really CGI, and it's like, well, look at this, and it's like, look how amazing this looks. I mean, but like take a frame here from ET where it's just practical effects, and it's very special what you're watching. It feels like
Yeah.
it's a boy and an alien just having an adventure.
Yeah, it's you can still get good stuff with CGI and everything, but it's like it's just so different. Like I don't know, they went through a lot of different things to really get the emotion out of there. I think my favorite movies are always where they like have kids go through something. Like they shot this entire movie in sequence, and I think that really helps
Yeah.
like with the emotion, especially with the kids. And it's like any movie that like puts kids through the ringer like that, like the original Willy Wonka, where it's like, oh, let's just like scare these kids and get like genuine reactions. It's like it always turns out good. That sounds bad, but it's
Yeah.
it always turns out good. So they really like took the time and the effort, and it's like back then you had to like go roundabout ways to figure out like, okay, how can we do this, how can we make this look real and look good. And they did. Like ET walking, that's a I don't know if you knew this, there was a kid who was, I can't remember if he was born without legs, but there was a kid who doesn't have legs, and he would walk on his hands, and he's in the ET suit, and that's how ET is like walking like drunk and stuff. It's a kid walking on his hands in the suit. It's kind of incredible. Like who would have thought that? Like who would have thought to even like come up with that?
Yeah, no, I get what you're talking about, man, and it's really special, and you really do, really believe those moments when they're together and they're feeling like, like this is a real friendship, and it really shows off with the character, with the actor and the animatronic. It's the whole sequence thing is really interesting, where they're kind of filming it chronologically, and you really what's it called, have that relationship between Michael and Elliot really feel like it's believable, like if it's changing, and that what he learns from Michael changing is what he kind of brings on to Grudy now, and it all feels like everybody's kind of changing for the better.
Yeah, yeah. And I I love the child actor performances in this. It's like every performance in this really, but like these are my favorite child actor performances ever. And I know some people at the time were like Henry Thomas deserves an Oscar nomination, and I'm sad it didn't happen because he's phenomenal in this movie.
100%, man. He's incredible. Everybody who's in this one is doing really well with the acting.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it doesn't work if the kids aren't good, you know. And there's there's plenty of crappy child performances out there in other movies where it's like, oh, this kid is annoying, and it's like if you cast the wrong kid, it completely falls apart. But like everybody in this movie is just like on fire. It's just like nothing but home runs the whole time.
Yeah. And what's it called? One of my favorite parts about this movie is when what's it called? when he's when he comes home and he's obviously drunk. What's it called? Elliot's drunk, or what's it called? He's feeling like hungover because he's feeling what ET's feeling, right? And ET just pretty much went through a whole 6-pack, and he he looks like ET dressed as a girl, and he goes, "Oh, come on."
That's such a good reaction.
He's like, "Are you serious? Like, come on, man. Why'd you do that to my alien? Like, it's you didn't even want to. You were scared of him at first, and now you're over here giving him a makeover."
That
Uh,
they're all so good in that. And then Drew Barrymore apparently really thought he was real, so
oh wow, that's
that's
amazing.
it's pretty funny. I saw a clip yesterday actually of they were it was them in the bedroom, I think, when she first meets ET, and she's talking to Henry Thomas, and he's convincing her that he's real. He says something, he's like, he's real, right? And she was like, well, what are those wires? And he's like, that's his feet. You didn't know that? And she's like, but then you hear Spielberg go, Drew, honey, can you get back in your spot, please? It's so good.
That's so bad of him, man. Come on.
I think she already thought he was real on top of that, but it's like, I wonder at what point she was like, oh, this is like, did she just go her whole life like, I wonder what ET's up to now?
Well, that really helps with the performance because you really do feel like, wow, this little girl really does think that this is a real alien. Like,
Yeah,
it is a real alien, of
apparently,
course, in the movie, but it's like, wow, like I could believe that a little girl like you would have a relationship like this with a little alien.
apparently she introduced her mom, like her real life mom, on set to the animatronic, but nobody was working him at the time, and she was like, "Oh, he's shy right now. He doesn't want to talk."
Oh,
It's
that's
just
just that's great.
like, is there a cuter, more adorable
Yeah.
child that has ever lived? I don't think so. It's
Yeah, I
like
mean that's
every
that's where the whole part of like innocence comes into this movie with her. Like, of course you have like Michael, who is the teenager growing up, and he wants to be his own, kind of be an independent person. You have the little boy who, you have Elliot, the little boy who just really, really wants a friend and really wants he understands how the world is at the moment. He realizes it's crap. And then you have the innocent child in Grudy who, it's like, wow, like there's an alien in my room. That's cool. Like, wow, it's scary, but it becomes cool. Kind of want to become his friend. It's really interesting because you have all these different perspectives coming from different parts of the family.
yeah, definitely. And then I love if we want to talk about like specific scenes, I love all the Halloween stuff.
Yeah, I love that first part when they go off with the bike, and he's like, wait, no, don't stop. I'm like, no, God, and he's like, please don't crash, please don't crash.
I also forgot just how epic that whole chase scene is at the end when they're trying to get to the forest, and Michael and all his friends are on the bikes, and it's like crazy BMX stunts because after this movie, like everybody wanted to do like BMX stuff. Like, was the coolest thing ever because of this movie.
So this is the movie that starts that damn obsession. But yeah, it's that scene's really well shot, and I really like it. Like, oh, they think they have them. They think that the police like, oh, we've got them. We're done. We got him here at the end of the hill, and then boom, no, it doesn't happen. No, you gotta go keep chasing them.
I love that. And that BMX stuff was so popular after this too because of like the crazy bike stuff in this movie.
Yep. So you can thank Spielberg for pretty much inventing the sport of BMX, the extreme sport of BMX.
Yeah, I found a cool article too about I think if you just look up like ET the extraterrestrial, like BMX boys or something, you could probably find this article online about the kids who did like the stunt work for the all the bike riding stuff. it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I wonder how many of those actually became BMX riders.
I think some of them already were because I was listening to this thing about it, and the guy who supplied the bikes was like, I think this is gonna be like a big deal, and he like just brought somebody with him that worked in his shop to like bring the bikes over to the set, and Spielberg saw how this kid was riding, and they were like, okay, let's like get some more of your friends and like come be in the movie and do the stunts. And they did.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. One of the last things I want to talk about here before we this is the last thing. The last thing I want to talk about before we actually have to finish up here, and we have to do all that wonderful stuff we do at the end. I want to talk about suburbia, man. Really, the whole life in suburbia that it's being portrayed in here. So for like people who don't understand, one of the things that I could probably see people complain about this movie is like, wow, like this neighborhood pretty much pretty not diverse. And it's like, oh, it's interesting because the white population really moves out to the suburbs after minorities really start becoming a really big prominence inside the city, the inner city. And a thing called white flight starts happening where all those white families start to really move out to the suburbs, and they start to cultivate a more dominant Anglo population out in the suburbs. And in here you see that, pretty much it's a pretty popular white populated town, white populated suburb. And it's interesting because you see like all these families, these kids riding alone at night. They're outside, no supervision from adults, and you're like, wow, like like life in the suburbs. This suburb seems to be really different than most suburbs you see in film. A lot of them's like, oh, look at the beautiful patios, the beautiful yards. Look at all these people being so nice to each other and really making it seem like, okay, maybe life in the suburbs really isn't that lonely. But here, it really does make it look like, wow, these kids are really on their own.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I think that Spielberg is doing something really interesting with there because he's kind of like, like even these kids who are probably like the really well off families, this kid who doesn't have a father, he still feels kind of lonely and sad. And he could be out here in like one of the richest neighborhoods and he's like still going through something. And it really interesting because you're like, usually suburbia isn't shown like that. It's supposed to be like this really nice place, really secluded, where everybody kind of gets along with each other, and that's not the case here.
Yeah, you never really see him interact with anybody. Like, he really doesn't have anybody that he confides in or any friends at school or anything. And I think maybe there was originally supposed to be like he was supposed to have some kind of friend, but I think it works better this way where it's like he's really like coming into his own throughout this movie. And it's all because of meeting this thing, like the ultimate friend that you can possibly have. So
and I like that, because apparently Spielberg was like, yeah, this kind of shows me because I was the loner at that time. I was a kid who didn't have many friends in school, and it's like, wow, like, it really shows there that this kid is really alone. This kid really feels alone, and E.T. is his only friend, and it's really understandable that he wants him to stay with him. And it goes to show that, like, this glamorized neighborhood that is seen, it's told to be like one of the best ways to live. It's like, take your kids out to the suburbs, like, you there's not that much crime, there's like, it's kind of secluded, like everything is supposed to be tip top in shape. It doesn't seem to be that. These kids are very much growing up differently than people think because suburbia isn't usually highlighted like this.
yeah.
And I really I think that that's one of the really big interesting parts about this movie is just the relationship between the kids, and at the end, of course, the friends help out Henry. Why did I say Henry? They help out Elliot. I was thinking about the dog Harvey. I was like, wow.
I love him.
Even the dog had a relationship with ET. Is like at first he was barking at him, and then when he's there getting drunk, he's like, you know what, this guy's kind of like my friend too.
And he tries to get on the spaceship at the end.
That's true. He does try to get in. I kept laughing. I kept wondering, like, wait, y'all just let the dog get out of the house like that, and he went with you guys all the way to the forest? Like, crap, dude. Like, did you guys never notice that the dog went with y'all?
Yeah, I like the relationship with I don't know if they ever refer to him as Keys in the movie, but I know that's how he's credited. The one like main scientist who kind of talks to Elliot, and he's kind of like Elliot grown up, like adult Elliot, or that's how he kind of like portrays himself. But it's interesting because you don't really see any other adults besides Mary, the mom, until like the last third of the movie, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. The mom is kind of really like, in her own world. She's like, obviously she's going through the things about her divorce and what's it called. She's sad, and she's like kind of like not all there until finally the kids finally showed the alien to him, and it's like to her, and it's like, wow, like, oh crap, like you guys weren't lying, like wow.
That's one of my favorite bits is her being just oblivious to him. Like every time you think she's about to catch on, and
Yeah, everything when you think he's about to catch on, he's like, oh no, 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 there you go. It's like, oh, like Grudy just wants to show you the damn alien. Just turn around. It's like you're gonna finally see it. Nope, nope, nope.
and every time too. Like I've seen the movie so many times, and even now I'm like, oh shit, she's gonna see him. And then when she finally does, it's like she's the one person who, like, the first time she sees him, it's like horrific. Like him and Elliot are like sickly and like literally dying, and like that's such a shift change, such a like different tone than when everyone else meets him. It's like
Yeah,
it's kind of incredible.
yeah, and Spielberg does an incredible job of making this really timeless. This feels like this film is really. I mean, if you're a kid growing up, you're gonna feel this, and it's really one of the best coming of age films, and it's a really one that it kind of sticks out to everybody. And
Yeah, this is like my go-to if like anybody who's like, oh, I want my kids to watch something that's not like the same thing over and over. And like, some kids they want to watch the same like Frozen over and over, but like people who want to introduce their kids to like film or just like what movies can be, like this is the one I recommend to anybody who's trying to get their kid to see some like classic movies. Like this is such a good one to start with.
yeah, and it's really one that kind of, especially for those who like outcast kids, that this one kind of makes them feel like, oh wow, like maybe we're not like alone in all this, and really kind of feel like like everything's gonna be okay, because obviously it shows at the end that Elliot, everything's gonna be okay, like Elliot's gonna be fine. The brother is more of a protector now. He's got a different outlook on how he should be with his sister, and his mom is gonna start being a little bit more present, even though she is present, but only being a little bit more uh, open to her kids. And
Yeah.
yeah, that is our conversation on ET, man. So we've reached the end, man, and we're gonna get into the hot seat right now. But yeah, let's go. Thanks, man, for choosing this movie. I forgot how much I love this movie, and I'm glad that you chose. Well, I chose this one for you.
I'm glad I could get you to watch it again. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yep. If only we had an alien that liked to eat Reese's Pieces and get drunk during the day, right? Life would be a lot easier.
Actually,
than
they have some Reese's Pieces in the house right now. Actually,
Mm-hmm. Well, we're here at the end, my friend, and we do a nice little segment here that we do with everybody. So here we go. You have to recommend one movie that people watch, and you also have to call dibs on a movie for season 2. So,
all right.
Wesley, let them out, man. Bring them out.
All right, I've been thinking about it. So, my recommendation for everybody to watch is I don't know if you've seen this movie. You may have, but the Taika Waititi film called Boy. Have you seen that movie?
Nope.
Oh man, I had not seen it either until like a week or two ago. It came out in 2010, and it's one of Taika Waititi's first films. And he directs it, and he's stars in it. It's on Amazon Prime right now, so it's easy to find, easy to watch.
All right.
And ironically enough, tons of ET references throughout the whole thing. It literally starts with an ET quote on the screen, and it's insane. It's set in the 80s, so he's constantly like referencing ET and things like that. But it's also just like a good coming of age story as well.
Yeah.
It's about kind of like how we see our fathers. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's almost like it's a lot similar to ET, but it's also kind of different. It's like he has his father in his life for the first time, and the way the way he sees him is not really the way that he is, and it's kind of about coming to terms with that, about kind of having a deadbeat dad.
Yeah.
I guess you would say, and Taika Waititi plays the dad. It's hilarious, but it's also like really sad and heartbreaking at times. I don't know. It's a great like coming of age movie, and if you like movies like E.T., then you'll probably be all about it because it's great. So that's my recommendation. It's on Amazon Prime right now, so it's easy to find.
All right, man. So that's it, boys. Go and watch that. That's Wesley's recommendation. And now we get into the one that I'm always looking forward to. What are you going to steal from everybody else for season 2 of the Cinema Condition?
I'm gonna go another normie pick. I think.
Do what you want, man.
I always keep this as my E.T. is my first favorite movie, and my second favorite that I want to talk about next time is Edward Scissorhands.
All right, nobody has claimed that, man. Wow, that's cool. By the way, before we do claimings, like I should probably send an updated list of what's claimed, so people don't, so I don't give them the awkward. Yeah, that's kind of hard.
That's true. That would have been bad if I was like, let me pick something else.
That's another movie where Suburbia is kind of shown off to be like very different, nosy and ugly.
I had that in my back pocket when you were talking about that. I was like, ooh, he's gonna love this pick then, because it's kind of a Tim Burton trademark where Suburbia is always kind of portrayed as like the villain almost. Like,
yeah, kind of like really nosy people. And yeah, I love Edward Scissorhands. I haven't seen it in a really long time, but that's gonna be your pick for season 2 of the Cinema Condition, and nobody else can.
It's been a while since I've watched it as well, so I'm excited to revisit that one.
Yep. So thank you so much for coming on, man. This is now we've reached the end, and you can plug all your stuff. You got a new video out and everything?
Man, I don't even know if I told you what I'm working on right now. I don't know if it'll be up by the time this episode.
This will be up next Wednesday.
Okay, so it may or may not be. I'm working on it right now. I'm editing it. But if you go on my YouTube channel called Viewist, you'll see our episodes of the series we've done before, Nostalgia. But I'm starting a new thing, or I'm attempting to, where I interview different people. And I just interviewed, a week ago, I interviewed Dee Wallace, who plays Mary in E.T. And I was able to talk to her for like 40 minutes, and I'm chopping it up now and editing a video. But it was crazy conversation, especially for me, because I'm obviously obsessed with ET. So just getting to sit down and talk to her for a while was awesome. And she shared some fun stuff, and that should be up on our YouTube channel next week at some point. So, or well, this week if you're listening. Listening now. So it's a fun one, and I'm hoping to interview some more people soon. So definitely check that out. It's gonna be a long one, but it's if you're into ET and into just hearing more about it, hearing from somebody who was there, like it was pretty fascinating for me. So I'm very excited to share that with people.
Dude, that is awesome that you got to interview her. That's amazing.
I can't believe she said yes. I'm still like kind of shocked that just the fact that she like agreed to it. I was on cloud 9, so that it was really cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I hope everybody checks that out when it's up. And Instagram, Twitter, go ahead and plug it up, bro.
Oh yeah, I'm Wesley Bout on Twitter, and on Instagram I'm Wesley_collects, and that's where I post all my toys, plenty of ET stuff, plenty of other like Funko Pops, action figures, whatever, all my toy photography stuff.
Yeah. And you can always find Wesley around here on the Nerdcore Podcast Network on shows that we are constantly doing. He's always on. He's always here for the Oscars stuff, and that's awesome. We love when he comes on. So go and show some love to Wesley and find him where he's telling you to go find him. All right. Well, it seems that Wesley cut out, but we'll go ahead and finish it up here. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one, everybody.